Hi there everybody, welcome to episode 272 of the Art of Procurement. So I'm your host, Philip Heitzen, and with revenues in 2018 of over 76 billion euros, Deutsche Telekom is one of the world's leading integrated telecommunications companies. And at the Ivalua NOW conference that took place in Paris earlier this year, I had the opportunity to sit down and talk to Hakan Cakir of Deutsche Telekom to discuss the lessons learned from pursuing a digitization journey in procurement within such a large organization. Since 2014, Hakan has actually been the senior expert of procurement processes and systems, sourcing and vendor management within the group supply services at Deutsche Telekom. So this procurement steering and digitization team that he works within, they have end-to-end responsibility for all group-wide strategic procurement processes and systems, including digitizations and innovation roadmaps. Now, before we go into the interview, I'd just like to let you know that I'm very thankful for the support of Tradov. If you've been a listener to the Art of Procurement over the past few weeks, you'll know that Tradov has very generously sponsored the show. So Tradov is a B2B platform that connects buyers and sellers across the world. And one of the things that you can do with Tradov is actually build your own private network or community portal for free. So, for example, a portal that brings together just your procurement team, where you can share information, post thought leadership, and start discussions among your team. Well, we're creating a private group just for Art of Procurement listeners. Within Tradov, we're going to post podcasts and articles that we come across that we think will help you on your journey to elevate the impact of procurement. All you need to do is to go to artofprocurement.com/Tradov and click the Join for Free button. On logging in, you'll be directed to a page to request access to the Art of Procurement private community, and our team will do the rest. Okay, so let's go into the interview today. And I started out by asking Hakan if he could provide a little bit of context onto the size and scope of Deutsche Telekom.
Deutsche Telekom is one of the world's leading integrated telecommunications solution with some 178 million mobile customers, 28 million fixed lines and 20 million broadband. So we provide fixed network, broadband, internet, mobile communication, IPTV products and services for customers, and information communication technologies for business.
Right. And from a global perspective, I know that its founding is in Germany, but you've got operations around the world right now.
Yes, Deutsche Telekom is present in 50 countries.
Yeah.
And last year we made, last financial year we made a revenue of 75.7 billion euros, and 66% of it is outside Germany.
Right. And for most people outside of Germany, the brand that they would most recognize is probably T-Mobile. Is that correct?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So especially in T-Mobile, especially in the US, so the brand is really present as T-Mobile.
Right. I'd like to talk a little bit about your kind of the procurement transformation journey at Deutsche Telekom, which you began, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. I just wonder if you could share a little bit about the challenges that you faced as a procurement organization that you were looking to overcome as you began your transformation journey.
So we are doing a lot of activities in procurement since 10-15 years regarding our processes and system. We made big progress, and for 4-5 years ago, so we checked the situation in our sourcing area. If we are using the right product, the right sourcing suite in our end-to-end sourcing process. And we realized that we need a sourcing platform which is easy to use.
Yeah.
And we needed an integrated solution for our end-to-end sourcing process. So therefore we started a selection process for this topic.
Right. And it was focused on the sourcing, like the source to contract process, as opposed to the procure to pay, or did you already have a solution in place for procure to pay?
The focus was source to contract process, not P2P.
Right. And as you started that process, what were the kind of things that you were looking for? What was the future state vision in the sourcing to contract process?
For us, it was important to have integrated solution.
Yeah.
And it should be easy to use for our buyers. So these were the two important topics in the selection process. Nevertheless, so we checked functional requirements, commercials, timings, partnership was also important topic for us to have a partner which we can continue the work in the next years.
That you can collaborate with. When you think about ease of use, it's so important. I was asked last week for some recommendations on the things to look for when you're making a sourcing selection. And for me, usability is always right at the very top. How did you kind of determine which of the providers that you looked at was the easiest to use? Did you work with your buyers and did they test it? Or I'm just wondering the process that you went through to determine that what you chose ultimately was the easiest platform to use.
In the selection process, we involved all the parties. And the buyers were involved at the beginning of the selection process, so that we showed them all the providers and then made some tests with them.
Yeah.
And after getting all the feedbacks, so we decided, we made our decision.
So when you looked at then the implementation, did you take a phased approach? You looked at different regions first. Did you launch globally at the same time? I'd love to kind of hear how you prioritized the launch of the new source to pay system.
Our procurement department operates globally, so therefore it was not possible to start in all countries with the solution. Therefore, we started with phase implementation.
Yeah.
So we started in Germany with Ivalua, with the use of Ivalua, and then had our rollout in the countries.
How, as you started within Germany, and this is really relevant, I think, as you started in any country, what were some of the lessons that you learned in terms of implementing and rolling out Ivalua?
Ivalua provides a good solution, and it's not necessary to use additional software, so you can start directly with the use of the tool.
Yeah.
But you can have a good tool, but you need change management measures. So for the implementation, involve all the parties and train them during this implementation process. It's not easy to convince the people to use the tool.
Yeah.
So you can have the best tool, but you need definitely a lot of change management activities to get the success.
What were some of the things that you found that were most effective as part of the change management to help drive engagement with the tool?
So we use a lot of change management activities, and the important one was to define key users, which brings the solution in the departments to the buyers.
Okay, so you had an advocate, you identified advocates who would then become owners, essentially, that would then drive the engagement within their team.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about getting the platform in place. What are some of the benefits that you have seen of actually now having the source to contract platform in place?
In procurement or in all areas, you need a harmonized process and then define KPIs. Right. So you can only manage lean processes, lean digital processes based on KPIs. So therefore, we need the data in our strategic sourcing suite to get the right decisions.
So, as you, it raises a good question about process. When you implemented the platform, did you build process around the platform, or did you keep your existing processes and try and build the technology to fit the process?
So we harmonized our processes before and then started with the implementation.
Okay.
It's important that the systems follows to the processes.
Yeah. So, that harmonization was before you implemented, so you got to where you wanted to be for a best-in-class process, and then looked at the technology to fit within that process.
Exactly.
As you have gone through the journey, I wonder if you have any tips for listeners to the podcast on how to maximize investment in their procurement technology. How do you get the most out of technology once you have implemented it?
Yeah. One of the significant lessons learned is for us, keep it simple. So it's important to have a strategy, procurement strategy based on company strategy.
Yeah.
Then define the category strategy.
Yeah.
Then implement the processes and systems based on this strategy.
Yeah.
And the second important lessons learned for us is find the right partners. If you would ask me what's art of procurement, then I would say bring the right people with the right partners together.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly a lot more than just fitting in a technology and everybody walking away and hoping the technology works. That's to me the art as well. Is how do you make all these different elements, the people, the processes, the technology, all work together to create something that's stronger than each one of those pieces individually. As you are thinking about the future. Where do you go? So you have the source to contract platform with Ivalua in place. What's next? How do you build on that?
The next aim, our goal is to get a data-driven procurement. And our one sourcing suite is the basis for our data.
Yeah.
So we have to collect the data, bring it in our reporting tool together, and provide the buyers the right figures, so that they can make the right decisions on right time. So this is our goal in the next years.
And how are you thinking about going about that I think one of the challenges we all have with data is getting good data. The data that comes into the system probably needs to be cleaner than we often see so that when it comes back out, it's actionable. I wonder if there's anything or any approach that you're taking to really look at how do you clean the data to make sure it's good data that goes into the tool?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's a good discussion all the time in the procurement area. The data are not okay. The data quality is not okay. I think the first topic is, or the important topic is to bring the data in the tool.
Yeah.
And then we can work with them.
Yeah. Now, my last question here is actually in your profile. I know you talk a little bit about chatbots and being interested in chatbots in procurement. I wonder if, it's something that we often as a profession talk about, and I'm not sure we entirely know how to use technologies like chatbots yet. I wonder if you have an opinion on how you think we will end up using technologies like chatbots in procurement.
Chatbots is one of the topics on our roadmap. So there are additional topics like smart contracts, predictive analytics. I think chatbots can support in daily business to avoid administrative things.
Yeah.
It should help buyers to get information on the process during the sourcing process.
Yeah.
But our goal is not to implement our FAQs in the chatbot.
Right.
So the chatbot bring valuable information during the sourcing process for the buyers.
So examples could be pulling data to present to the buyers throughout a sourcing process, or pulling supplier recommendations perhaps from somewhere so that they don't have to go and do all the research to find that information themselves.
Exactly. So if you are doing your awarding decision, maybe chatbot can pull information to the buyers. So we made the sourcing project last year, maybe in Brazil.
Yeah.
So and selected the supplier. Maybe you can contact this buyer to talk with them.
Got it.
Like this.
That's really interesting because then it's more about intelligence. It's less about let's just make the process go faster. Yes, it does make the process go faster, but you're better informing the process as well, which I think is a different use case than a lot of us in procurement think about when we think of chatbots. So it's actually encouraging to think about that's an approach that you can take using technology like that.
Another use case is, so we are training the buyers and they are getting a lot of information regarding processes and systems. But if they need the information, it's not there.
Right.
So it's currently all the buyers have a lot of information. So and they have to consider a lot of process topics during this process.
Yeah.
And also in this case, chatbots can help.
Yeah. All right, Hakan, I want to thank you so much for joining me on the Art of Procurement and for sharing Deutsche Telekom's transformation journey with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, I want to thank you for tuning in to today's podcast. You can check out all of our back catalogue at artofprocurement.com/podcast, where you can also subscribe to our newsletter to make sure that you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's show, I'd love if you would tell a peer, or perhaps go and rate and review by going to artofprocurement.com/review. Word of mouth really is the best way to help the podcast grow, and if you're able to do either one of those things, I would truly appreciate it.